In the heart of Ibadan, the capital of Oyo State in Nigeria, where the hustle of everyday life intertwines with the rhythm of vibrant culture, familial ties weave a complex tapestry of love, rivalry, and unresolved emotions. The city pulses with energy, vendors shout their wares, children laugh as they play, and the aroma of spicy jollof rice fills the air. Amidst this vibrant backdrop lives Tunji, a 25-year-old man who has carved out a successful life for himself in the world of finance. With his sharp suits and ambitious drive, he embodies the dreams of a generation eager to rise above the challenges of their environment. This is in sharp contrast with his half-brother Lanre, who is still struggling to gain his footing financially at 29. Within Lanre's heart lies a simmering resentment that festers like an untreated wound. This bitterness is directed toward his younger stepbrother, Tunji, whose very existence serves as a painful reminder of the rift that has divided the family. Tunji, the son of his father's second wife, represents everything Lanre has fought against: perceived favoritism and the loss of his father's attention. His father's remarriage to Tunji's mother only deepened the divide, sparking a rivalry that would shape their lives. As the two brothers navigate their complex relationship, the shadow of the misunderstanding between step-families looms large, setting the stage for a conflict that will test the boundaries of love and hatred. As children, Lanre and Tunji shared a world filled with laughter and innocence, exploring the bustling streets of their neighborhood together. However, the arrival of Tunji's mother shifted the family dynamics irrevocably. When Lanre's father remarried after the death of his first wife, the warmth that had once enveloped their home turned chilly. Tunji's mother, eager to establish her place, introduced a new set of expectations and boundaries that Lanre found suffocating. Her arrival shifted the family dynamics irrevocably. Lanre watched, wide-eyed, as his father's affection and attention began to shift toward Tunji, a boy who, in Lanre's eyes, seemed to bask in the glow of favoritism. This was the same boy whom his mother, out of the kindness of her heart, had asked Lanre's father to bring home, despite his birth being a result of the men's unfaithfulness. Growing up together, they had bonded, but now Lanre felt a surge of betrayal and jealousy. He was the eldest, the one who had always been the center of his father's pride, yet now he felt sidelined by a boy who was merely a reminder of what was. As Tunji thrived under the watchful gaze of his mother, Lanre's heart hardened, and resentment began to root itself deep within him. What once was a brotherly bond turned into a rivalry, as Lanre silently wished devil against the boy he believed had usurped his place in the family. With his mother's encouragement, Tunji devised schemes to undermine Lanre at every turn. They would intercept birthday gifts and opportunities that should have rightfully gone to Lanre, relishing in the small victories that felt like justice. Whenever their father planned a family outing or a special surprise for Lanre, Tunji would find ways to sabotage those moments. This created a toxic environment where Lanre felt increasingly isolated, and every correctional effort by Tunji's mother always left him believing it would have been different if his mother were alive. Fast forward to the present, and the rift had only deepened. Tunji had risen to prominence in his career, earning accolades and financial success that painted a stark contrast to Lanre's life. While Tunji thrived in the corporate world, Lanre struggled to find his footing, his dreams overshadowed by illness and a growing sense of inadequacy. The divide between them became a chasm, where Tunji's accomplishments served as a constant reminder of Lanre's perceived failures. In this climate of envy and animosity, the seeds of hatred had taken root, threatening to consume both brothers in a cycle of bitterness that seemed unbreakable. The crisis unfolded like a thunderclap on an otherwise ordinary day. Tunji had always been the sporty, healthier brother, but when he collapsed during a routine soccer match, panic erupted. The diagnosis of kidney failure hit the family hard, sending shockwaves through their already fragile dynamic. In the days that followed, the gravity of the situation became apparent, each moment steeped in disbelief and despair. Tunji's mother, who had once been a formidable presence, now stood vulnerable, her face etched with worry and fear. The family that had been fractured by rivalry now found themselves united by a common enemy, illness. As the doctors explained the severity of Tunji's condition, the urgency of finding a donor loomed large. The words, transplant, and wait list, hung heavily in the air, thick with the weight of uncertainty. Tunji's health deteriorated rapidly, and every passing day felt like a countdown. The thought of losing her son consumed Tunji's mother, who frantically reached out to family and friends, desperately searching for a compatible donor. She pored over medical records, praying for a miracle, her heart torn between hope and despair. Lanre watched from the sidelines, a mixture of emotions swirling within him. The old animosity he felt toward Tunji was still alive, simmering beneath the surface, yet now it battled against an unsettling sense of obligation. He had always prided himself on his resolve, but the sight of Tunji, weak and vulnerable, was disarming. In spite of the present resentment towards his brother, the embers of the love and brotherly bond they built as kids still flickered in his heart. However, as Tunji's mother cried and begged for help, Lanre found himself digging in his heels, refusing to consider the possibility of stepping in. His initial reaction was steeped in resentment. The years of rivalry had left scars that were not easily erased. How could he offer aid to the boy who had once been the source of his greatest pain? The thought of extending a hand felt like betrayal to his own feelings, a capitulation to the very family dynamic he had resented for so long. Instead of compassion, Lanre's heart hardened further, unwilling to let go of the past. He dismissed the cries for help that echoed around him, convincing himself that he was justified in his refusal. Several tests were conducted for donors within the family and the results showed that only Lanre matched. He refused to make the donation, arguing that God who created him with 2 kidneys knew he needed both. Amid the turmoil, Tunji's mother reached out to Lanre's late mother's sister, Aunt Titileo, a voice of reason in their chaotic family drama. Known for her wisdom and compassion, Aunt Titileo arrived with a determination to mend what had been broken. As she walked into the tense atmosphere of Lanre's home, her presence brought a flicker of hope, though it felt faint against the backdrop of animosity that had built up over the years. One evening, with the weight of their situation hanging heavy in the air, Aunt Titileo took Lanre aside for a frank discussion. She challenged him directly, confronting the deep-seated hatred that had festered within him. "Lanre," she began, her voice steady yet gentle, "your brother is fighting for his life. This is not the time for grudges." Her eyes bore into his, demanding honesty. "You need to let go of the past." Lanre felt a surge of anger rise within him. "You don't understand, Aunt. Tunji took everything from me, my father's love, my childhood happiness. He is the reason for all the pain in our family." His voice cracked with emotion as he recounted years of feeling sidelined, overshadowed by a brother he perceived as a usurper. Each grievance poured out, a torrent of bitterness that had built up over time. He detailed the countless ways he had tried to reclaim their place, how Tunji's very existence had felt like a betrayal. Aunt Titileo listened intently, her expression a mix of empathy and disappointment. "But this isn't about the past," she countered softly. "It's about compassion, about being human. The hurt you carry is a heavy burden, and it will consume you if you let it." Her plea resonated deeply, forcing Lanre to confront his feelings for the first time. In that moment, he found himself wrestling with an internal conflict. His pride, built on years of resentment, clashed violently with the desire to be a better person. Could he really set aside the animosity that had defined him? The image of Tunji's frail body, struggling for breath, lingered in his mind, demanding action. Lanre felt the walls he had built around his heart begin to tremble, yet the fear of vulnerability held him back. Aunt Titileo's words echoed within him, stirring a longing for reconciliation, but the journey toward forgiveness felt daunting. Would he find the strength to bridge the chasm that had grown between them? The choice loomed before him, and as he stood at the crossroads of hatred and compassion, he realized that the path forward would require not only courage but an act of love he had never thought possible. Days turned into a blur of hospital visits and anxious waiting, and with each passing moment, Tunji's condition worsened. Lanre received updates through strained phone calls, the gravity of the situation sinking in deeper with each piece of news. Tunji was no longer the competitive brother, he was a frail shadow of his former self, trapped in a hospital bed, surrounded by the sterile smells of antiseptic and the beeping machines that monitored his fragile life. The sight of him, once full of vigor and life, brought a haunting realization: if nothing changed soon, he could lose his only brother, Tunji, forever. As Lanre paced the dimly lit corridors of the hospital, a heavy weight settled in his chest. Each step echoed his internal turmoil, forcing him to confront the bitterness that had long dictated his actions. He had spent so many years holding on to grudges, convinced that his hatred was justified. But now, with the imminent loss of his brother looming over him, he began to reflect on the futility of that resentment. What did it truly matter in the face of life and death? The anger that had fueled him for so long now felt like a chain, binding him to a past that no longer served him. In a quiet moment, Lanre found himself standing outside Tunji's hospital room, the sounds of soft murmurs and distant beeping penetrating his thoughts. He could hear his stepmother's voice, strained with worry, as she sat beside Tunji, holding his hand. An overwhelming wave of guilt washed over him. He realized that his refusal to help was rooted in fear, a fear of vulnerability, of losing the shield he had built around himself. But more importantly, it was a fear of what it meant to forgive. Taking a deep breath, Lanre stepped back, his heart racing with a newfound clarity. He understood that donating his kidney wasn't just a physical act, it was a powerful statement of love over hate. In that moment of revelation, he made the decision that would change everything. He would not let his brother die while he still had the power to help. Lanre felt a surge of resolve as he approached his stepmother and Aunt Titileo, the warmth of their support flooding over him. "I want to help," he said, his voice steady. "I'll donate my kidney." The words felt foreign yet liberating, a declaration of love that transcended the bitterness of the past. In that instant, Lanre chose to embrace compassion, opening his heart to a future where love could flourish, even in the shadow of their shared history. The day of the operation arrived, thick with a mix of anxiety and hope. Lanre felt a knot in his stomach as he prepared for the procedure, but the resolve he had found in his decision carried him forward. As he lay on the gurney, flanked by nurses and doctors, he stole glances at his family, who wore expressions of both fear and gratitude. Tunji's mother clutched her son's hand tightly, whispering prayers, while Lanre's aunt sat quietly, tears glistening in her eyes, a blend of sorrow and pride at her nephew's courageous choice. The surgical process began, and the sterile environment buzzed with activity. As the anesthetic took hold, Lanre felt the world blur and fade, surrendering to the unknown. In that moment, he was no longer just a brother fighting for another's life, he was part of something larger, a bridge between past grievances and future reconciliation. As the hours passed, the tension in the waiting room was palpable. The family sat together, united by a shared anxiety, their hearts pounding in sync with the rhythm of hope. Yet amid the worry, there was a sense of solidarity forming, an acknowledgement that love could emerge even from the deepest wounds. During the surgery, as the team worked meticulously to extract Lanre's kidney, an unexpected discovery was made: a hole in his heart. The doctors exchanged concerned glances before making a swift decision. They would repair the heart while they had him under. This moment felt serendipitous. The physical repair mirrored the emotional healing taking place in Lanre's life. As the doctors worked, it became clear that Lanre's act of love was not just saving Tunji, it was also mending the fractures within himself. In choosing to help his brother, he was also saving himself. He was beginning to stitch together the torn fabric of their family, forging a new bond rooted in compassion and hope. In the days following the surgery, both brothers found themselves in recovery, their paths intertwined in ways they had never anticipated. Tunji woke up, groggy but filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He reached out, clasping Lanre's hand, a gesture of understanding that transcended their tumultuous past. Each day brought small victories. Tunji regained strength while Lanre slowly healed from the procedure that had not only saved his brother's life but had also revealed a hidden vulnerability in his own heart. As they recovered, the transformation in their relationship became undeniable. Tunji expressed his deep appreciation for Lanre's sacrifice, and in turn, Lanre began to let go of the bitterness that had defined him for so long. Conversations that once felt strained blossomed into genuine discussions, filled with laughter and shared memories. Through this shared experience, a new bond emerged, one forged from compassion, forgiveness, and mutual respect. Their animosity, once a barrier, became a bridge to understanding. In the quiet moments of healing, both brothers discovered that love could indeed triumph over hate, creating a resilient connection that promised to endure. As they navigated their new reality, they were no longer just brothers by blood, they were allies, each strengthened by the other's journey toward healing. As Lanre reflected on the journey he and Tunji had undertaken, he felt a profound sense of transformation. The experience of donating his kidney and witnessing Tunji's recovery had taught him the undeniable power of love over hate. He realized that while resentment had once clouded his heart, forgiveness had opened a door to healing, not just for Tunji, but for himself as well. This journey extended beyond their individual struggles. It resonated deeply with the values of unity and family ingrained in African culture. In a society where familial bonds are revered, Lanre understood that true strength lies in compassion and support for one another, even in the face of adversity. With newfound hope for the future, Lanre embraced his role as an elder brother with renewed purpose. The path ahead was no longer marred by bitterness but illuminated by the promise of redemption and personal growth. Together, he and Tunji had rewritten their story, one of resilience and reconciliation. As they moved forward, they carried with them a shared understanding that love, despite its challenges, could heal even the deepest divides, paving the way for a brighter, united future.